Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Sayfie here with Chris Ballas and Anthony Broom. We're recording on Wednesday. This is coming out on Thursday, October 3rd, ahead of Michigan against Washington, a rematch of the national championship game. We'll break it all down. We'll give you our score predictions, and we will pick some games around the Big Ten this week for Week 6. But before we get into all of it, make sure to like the video if you're watching on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to our channel, and head to the Wolverine.com. Promo code GOBLUE gets you 50% off an annual subscription. So it's $4.99 a month billed annually. Great deal. It ends Friday night, so make sure to take advantage on this big game offer with the promo code GOBLUE. And we will have a couple of us in Chicago for Big Ten Basketball Media Day. We will have all three of us here out in Seattle for the Michigan-Washington game. So come on in, get all of your Michigan football, basketball, recruiting content at thewolverine.com. Use the promo code GOBLUE. No, but like I said, we are headed west to Husky Stadium. Capacity 70,138. And I hear it's one of the toughest to play in the country. Talking to John Borton this week, our esteemed coworker, known friend and trusted agent, he was saying it's one of his favorite venues that he's ever been to. So excited to see that. Mount Rainier, the Cascade Mountains, the Olympic mountain range in the distance. But this is a rematch of the January 8th game in Houston between Michigan and Washington 269 days ago. Michigan wins the national championship. Also lead the all-time series 9-5 with the last three wins in the series, including in 2021 at the Big House. Washington also won a national championship by beating Michigan in the Rose Bowl. Doug Skeen, I believe, on that team back in the early 90s there. But Washington comes in this season 3-2 against 10th-ranked Michigan. They've got wins over Eastern Michigan, Weber State, Northwestern, tight losses to Washington State and Rutgers last Friday night. But your guys' thoughts here as we're really, when this comes out, we'll be on our way over there.
Well, I packed my national championship bag that they gave us at the national. I don't know. Is it too soon for them, do you think? A little reminder going through the airport there. And that's a sweet bag. Tell me that's not a sweet bag. It's one of the best gifts we ever got, which you should be when you go to the national championship game. But I got a little surprise for you guys. We are going to be climbing Mount Rainier on Friday. So pack accordingly. And couple Sherpas, and we're going to get it up, down, come back, and then be back for the Brazilian steakhouse that night. So it should be fun. But I can't wait for this trip, man. I've been waiting for this for a long time. We were supposed to go, I think, in 2020. Got canceled. And I want to see, was it 2020 or was it supposed to be 2021? It was
supposed to be 2020.
Yeah. So you know what? I can't wait to do some sailgating. I think that might be a reality on Saturday, and which would be unbelievable. It's part of the experience out there. But you know, we ran into some Washington fans when we were at one of the restaurants in Houston, and they were good people, and it was fun to talk to them. And it was, you know what an experience. I can't wait to get out there. I think they've got a good fan base, and I really don't know what to make of this game yet, fellas. So I know we're going to be talking about that, but this is a huge opportunity for Michigan. At the same time, it's like USC, it's a pivotal matchup.
Yeah, I love Seattle. One of my good friends moved out there a couple years ago. We'll see him this weekend. Love Mount Rainier. One of the coolest. I mean, it just kind of towers over that skyline, and you don't realize when you see it, it's like an hour and a half away from the city, but it's like right there. It's so awesome.
Get ready.
I love it out there. This is going to be an awesome trip. You know, in a lot of ways, I don't know what to make of this game either. I have a hunch on how I think it might go. We'll talk about that here in a bit, but you know, I think the long and the short of it for me is that we've learned what Michigan football is the last 3 years when they've gone on the road for the first time. And I think this will be a game where we have our largest lesson yet on what they could be, more so than any of these other games that they played. So I'm excited for it. I'm fired up. It's going to be a lot of fun to get on the road, get back out there. Clayton and I collecting a couple time zones in our travels on the way out there, but it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, no doubt. So January 8th, you know, these two teams play different head coaches, a bunch of different players. How many players on the current Michigan team do you guys think played in the national championship game?
Oh, wow. 10?
I'll say 12, 13.
Okay. It was 33 Michigan Wolverines.
Wow.
That played 9 of them on offense, 9 of them on defense, and then 15 that played special teams only. But out of the 9 on offense, 2 starters, Colston Loveland and Tyler Morris, starters in that game, both kind of starters this year, especially Colston Loveland. Then the 9 on defense, 4 starters, but that includes Rod Moore. So it's really 8. So actually more Michigan players saw time on offense than defense, but the total snaps for the defense heavily outweigh, I think, triple the amount on the offense, right? Giovanni El-Hadi played 1 snap. It was a touchdown, so he's perfect percentage there. But things like that. So then you have the 15, Tommy Doman punted against Washington. But for Washington, the numbers are 19 players that played in the national championship game. 9 on defense, 2 starters, 3 offensive players, all backups, and then 7 special teams only players, including their punter and their kicker, who has had some issues here lately. I'm sure we'll get into that. But just thought that was interesting as we head in here. A lot of new, with both these teams, but it will be the same helmets going at it. We'll see what uniforms Michigan wears. They'll be going, obviously, with the Rhodes. They were in the all blue in the national title game. But I did want to remind people, and Anthony Broom set this up on Friday afternoon for a little happy hour at 3 p.m. If you're going out to Seattle, we will be at Petoskey's.
Correct.
Bar and Grill, something like that. Petoskey's, just look it up. It's same spelling as the town in northern Michigan. But Anthony, any other details we should know about there? We'd love to see.
No. Looking forward to seeing folks come out. I just remember the last time we did some kind of thing like this was in Houston for the national championship game. We packed out a bar there. A couple Washington fans tried to walk in. They did the old Grandpa Simpson where they walked in the door and they just walked right back out.
Yeah, they got booed too.
Yes, they did.
Nice.
So yeah, it's going to be awesome. Love getting out on the road. Love getting with the people. That's why these post-game shows at Regents Field during home games have been so much fun to talk to the people, mix it up a little bit there. Excited to do that this weekend.
Sound like a king when you say that. Going to go and mingle with the commoners.
Right. I was going to say it's a little arrogant of us.
I'm going to see my people, so we'll make sure
they're all our people. We love them.
We'll make sure you have security.
Yeah. It is a little arrogant of us to be like, yeah, we're going to be, at so-and-so place.
To be fair, the people asked for this.
I know. I said it too.
We've had threads all summer on the message board of, hey, where's the meetup in Seattle? Where's the meetup? Where's the tailgate? Well, here we are, our loyal subjects. We will be at Petoskey's.
At Petoskey's, apropos, man, town in Michigan, one of the best towns in Michigan. John Jansen lived there for a long time, my man. So we'll see you guys all there, and can't wait.
Yeah, it is one of the best places. If it's anything like the town Petoskey, it will be fantastic. So excited to see people there. Should be good weather for the game as well. Mid-60s, mostly sunny. Let's break it down. Talk some X's and O's, right, of this game. But before we do, we have to talk about our friends over at Prize Picks. It's the most fun way to enjoy watching sports. You can win up to 100 times your money this football season. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. You can do so in about 20 seconds. It's super easy to use. It's a great way to test your skills as a fan. We're doing this on Wednesday, so I don't have any picks yet, but I'm excited to see them come out here later in the week. And specifically Kalel Mullings, Michigan's running back. What is his projection going to be this week? I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on that, placing my picks. You can get all sorts of picks on not just the Michigan games, but NFL, MLB, the rest of college football. And we have a special offer for you. Go to prizepicks.com or the PrizePicks app. Use the code Wolverine to receive a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineups. Again, go to prizepicks.com or the PrizePicks app. Use the code Wolverine to receive a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineup. Sign up today using that promo code Wolverine. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Let's talk about the Michigan offense as they head into their – what's that?
I said, must we?
Yeah.
All right.
So heading into their first road game where they're, practicing the silent counts and everything else, it's going to be loud, inexperienced quarterback, a lot of new pieces coming together, but they're 5 games in against a Washington defense, a little bit banged up on the defensive front. I guess their best defensive tackle, Javon Parker, tore his Achilles against Rutgers. He will be out. He was a big part of them having some success stopping the run this year compared to what they've done in the past. But a bunch of transfers on this Washington team in general. But some guys that were kind of backups last year stepping into starting roles. The weird thing is Michigan, hasn't really done a ton on offense, especially been balanced. But in the Washington defense has been okay. But like we said against USC, this might not be the best offense they're going to play all year, but it's going to be one that's going to test them in physicality and can you stop the run and can you guard an elite tight end, all those sorts of things. So it's going to be an interesting matchup.
It is. And I'm going back and forth on this one. I'm thinking, man, if they could get anything from the quarterback position that's beyond parochial, right, then they're going to have a really good shot to win this football game. But and then I go back to, there have been times that they move the ball and you think, okay, they're starting to get it, but we still don't really know how they're going to be on the road, especially with a new quarterback. So you got some new offensive linemen. The one thing they absolutely can't do, guys, is that crowd noise is loud. You cannot have the false start penalties and the dead ball penalties and get behind the sticks with Alex Orji or Davis Warren or any of these guys, because you won't be able to overcome that. So to me, it's going to be about the running game and being creative in it. And they have been. We've seen it. Our resident coaches have said, hey, they've done some really nice things there to mix things up and create some room. But it is going to come down to how Michigan runs the ball, because they are not going to win with the pass. And it's going to come down, in my opinion, to how Tommy Doman does, because he's going to get a lot of work, Michigan's punter, on Saturday. So he's got to pin them deep, and they're going to have to play the field position game and play some complementary football. But a lot of Kalel Mullings. I'd like to see Donovan Edwards in space a little bit. And I do like the matchups and the lines for Michigan, and that's why I'm kind of leaning toward Michigan to win this football game. But they've got to protect the ball, can't have stupid turnovers, and you know darn well that Washington is going to be stacking that box and trying to make them throw.
I think this game for them, really on both sides of the ball, comes down to third down. So many times over these last few years, I go back to think about the Michigan State game last year. Those crowd silencing third downs. I think that for Michigan is going to be where they give themselves a chance in this game. As it pertains to the quarterback position, have I seen enough to be confident? Not really, but have I seen enough to where I think they can't do it, or Alex Orji just flat out can't play the position? I'm not there yet. I think there are things that he needs to improve upon, and a game on the road with a ton of noise, a ton of chaos, that's going to challenge that. For me, as tangible or intangible as it might seem, there was improvements made last week, albeit the bar was pretty low for that to happen. But I do think, with the full menu of Colston Loveland back, with seemingly, it seems like Samaj Morgan probably back this week. When you have the full menu of guys to kind of work with, and then you're kind of peeling back the layers of what this can be and running stuff off of that run game, I think that they will have a little more success. And, again, I think, Chris, you're dead on. I think you look at the trenches on both sides of this matchup. We've seen strides from the Michigan offensive line, especially in the run game. So, in those short yardage, kind of gotta have it situations, I'm confident that they will find ways to get it done there. So this is, I think, going to be another one of those welcome to the Big Ten type of games for a former Pac-12 opponent. I think this is going to be kind of a grinded out approach. And, for Michigan, I think that on the offensive side of the ball, it just comes down to moving the chains, ending drives in points best you can, and kind of just leveling out some of the peaks and valleys. A lot of 3 and outs, but then you've had a lot of explosives the last few weeks. If you can find the balance of just being a little more consistent there, this Washington team is not very good. I don't know how good you are yet, but I think there's an opportunity here. So can I sit here and confidently say this is the week they score 30 points? This is the week they do this? No, I can't. But I do think when you look at the matchup, there are areas where they're going to, have some opportunities to make some plays here.
The long lulls for this offense of 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, then it starts to kind of weigh on that defense a little bit more, especially if you turn it over like Michigan did last week, where then you're putting them in bad spots. And of course, the punt coverage unit was part of that with the long punt return by Minnesota. But, they just can't have those in a game on the road, I think, especially. And when they lose the momentum, which is going to happen at some point, then you have to find a way to swing back and get it back. And I think that's something Michigan didn't do really against Minnesota. And, you know, until they recovered the onside kick with Kalel Mullings, which was very fitting that it was him to do that, you didn't really feel great about things. I mean, obviously, I guess, but they didn't have much of an answer until they recovered that. They're going to have to answer some of those momentum swings in this game. And the interesting thing, too, is Washington's a team that, you know, put up over 500 yards of offense last week. They only allowed just under 300, I think, to 299 to Rutgers, yet they lost, right? I believe they outgained Washington State pretty handily there. 452 to 381, but they lost a close game. Michigan's better, in my opinion, than both of those teams. Of course, Michigan will be on the road, but if it's a close game, Washington will have their worries about, you know, winning a close one. Michigan, I guess, same thing, especially your first time on the road. But Sharon Moore talked about it this week. Washington's going to play a lot of cover one, man coverage. You know, they're going to have the safety in the box as opposed to two high safeties, especially if you're going to run the ball as much Michigan does. If they did that last week, as Sharon Moore kind of said they've been doing, Kyle Monungai of Rutgers, an outstanding back, had some success. Rutgers total ran for 184 yards. They averaged 5.6 yards per carry. If Michigan can get there, and probably have to get a little bit more in terms of total yardage, but you're going to be running it more, so it's about average to a certain extent, and then get some out of the passing game, they may be able to do enough, you know, because Washington's had their own issues, which we'll talk about here with their offense finishing drives and all sorts of things. They missed a few kicks uncharacteristically last week. So I don't know really what we're going to get out of this Michigan offense or the Washington defense, but you know, could determine how this thing goes. If we flip it over, anything else on Michigan's offense before we move into the defense?
No, I want to see a receiver make some catches on Saturday. How's that?
Yeah, definitely. And as Kendrick Bell was talking about on Tuesday night, right, they're going to be challenged at the line of scrimmage. And he said the thing he's working on the most is being more physical. And, you know, if they're going to press you up there and they're going to challenge you, you may have a little bit more room if you do get some separation down the field. So make a play, right? Kendrick Bell made a couple plays last week. He also, you know, failed to haul in that one catch and was short of the sticks on one of his first downs. But he's a guy I think they could get going a little bit. Tyler Morris, Samaj Morgan coming back, like you mentioned, Anthony. So maybe, you know, we'll see if these receivers can do something. And then Colston Loveland is kind of the steady guy there, but you got to hit him right when he's open. So it will be interesting. Let's move over to the Michigan defense. But before we do, we have an ad from Chris Ballas, who just took out another ad here. Appreciate that. That's going in all of our pockets. Well, that's more beers for us over at Petoskey's in Seattle. But Chris Ballas and Doug Skeen over on YouTube Premium now. You can get their podcast every Sunday breaking down the previous Michigan game. You can also get E.J. Holland's recruiting intel, unfiltered E.J. Holland, which is kind of a scary thought. Talking Michigan recruiting, all the intel. He's not going to hold back because he is behind the paywall there on YouTube Premium. Just go to our page here, subscribe, hit the join button, and pay $4.99 a month for that. If you don't want to do that and you want to get it and you're a subscriber over at thewolverine.com, you can do that as well. So no need to do the YouTube, but you can watch those podcasts over at thewolverine.com. So thanks, Chris. That's another beer for us out there at Petoskey's.
My pleasure. And you know what? Doug Skeen brings it every week.
Yes.
He is the absolute best.
No doubt about that. Best in the business. That podcast is must watch for Michigan content each and every week. Let's move on to the Michigan defense against the Washington offense. And when these two teams played January 8th, it was all about the stud receivers that ended up going first, second, third round. It was all about Michael Penix, a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. A lot of differences now, and they're still kind of finding their fitting, but it starts with two guys. Will Rogers, the Mississippi State transfer at quarterback, who started 40 career games there. He's leads the SEC in history in completions, of course, played in the air raid under Mike Leach. There, the late, great Mike Leach, second in SEC history in passing yards. He's completed 74.8% of his passes for 1,300+ yards, 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's one of two. He's the only Power 4 quarterback, one of two in the country this year with 10+ touchdowns and no picks. So he has done a really good job protecting the ball, getting the ball out to guys like Giles Jackson, a former Michigan receiver. And then Jonah Coleman's the other guy that you have to mention. He is 4th in the Big Ten with 521 rushing yards on 72 carries, 4 touchdowns. Came over with Jedd Fisch from Arizona, but he's averaging 5.7 yards after contact per rush. So even if this O-line is average, which it is, he's able to get some things going. He's kind of a bowling ball at 230 pounds. But your guys' thoughts as Michigan's defense, you know, hey, Jonah Coleman, those are great numbers, but no one's really been able to run on Michigan. So good luck. Teams have had some success with the pass, but you're getting Josiah Stewart back. You're getting Will Johnson back.
Yeah, and that's going to be huge. And it's funny. You look at last week's game, and, you know, we always say this, one play here, one play there. That could have been an absolute blowout. And good teams find a way to stop the snowballing, right? And that's something that Michigan is not doing yet. When things start to go poorly, they have a hard time slowing it down in the second halves of the games. They got to figure that out. But I don't think that Washington's going to be able to run on this Michigan team. I think that this offensive line is worse than last year's, where Michigan dominated up front with a lot of the same personnel, if we're being honest. And to me, this is where Michigan has a great chance to win this football game. So get Will Rogers uncomfortable, get to him and fluster him, and they're going to have the short passing game. We all know that, right? It's going to be similar to what Minnesota did, frankly, in the second half. They might max protect at times, but I look at this offensive line and I saw them against Rutgers, and I was not impressed. And I think this is going to be a tough matchup for them. So defense travels. If they can keep the big plays at a minimum, guys, and not let the ball over their heads, I really like Michigan to win this battle and to keep this a low-scoring game, give the offense a chance to win. So, and with Will Johnson coming back, taking away half the field, fellas, that certainly helps as well. So this will be the toughest game of the year so far, other than Texas. I think this is a tougher matchup than USC, only because it's on the road for these guys. And but defense travels, fellows. I like that matchup for Michigan.
Yeah, a couple numbers here. You know, the 2 games against, I'll call them real football teams, Washington State and Rutgers. Obviously, Washington finds a way to almost rack up almost 1,000 yards of offense in those 2 games combined, with scoring outputs of 19 and 18 points respectively. Now, third downs in those games. Last week at Rutgers, Washington was 2 for 12 on third down. Against Washington State, 4 for 13 on third down. And yeah, they've done a great job of racking up a lot of offense, but they're having problems finishing drives. Points for so far this season, they're tied for 92nd in the country at 27.2 points per game. And they haven't seen a defense like this Michigan defense yet. You know, from a personnel perspective, yes, I think that Will Rogers isn't Quinn Ewers. He's really probably not even Miller Moss, but certainly a very good quarterback, a veteran guy who's played a lot of football. You know, kind of, you know, forcing him into mistakes, forcing him, you know, to do something uncharacteristic from what he's done so far this year. That's going to be a big key, but just, yeah, they've got some nice players. Jonah Coleman's a good running back. Giles Jackson, we saw a little bit of what he could do here, but he's been at Washington for, it feels like, 1 billion years now. He's on the Perry Ellis plan from Kansas. But it feels pretty lopsided for Michigan on the defensive side of the ball, for being honest. Now, those guys have been prone to coverage busts. They've been prone to some communication issues. Those are things I feel like get ironed out this week, only because you can hear a pin drop when you're on the road playing defense. The crowd's going to be quiet. I think those guys will be able to communicate better. And I do think that, you know, for the most part, the last few weeks, we've seen this group get to the right spot, make plays. We've seen that defensive line finally kind of start to impose their will here. So to me, you know, this is everything. And if you can keep them, not only keep them down, but if you find a way to maybe generate a score or flip field position on the defensive side of the ball where you're setting up your offense on a short field, I just feel really confident that this defense will travel, that these guys will find a way to get it done. And, you know, to kind of be what we've seen, more of the same in terms of keeping these offenses down on the road. So I'm not 100% confident in that, as you would be kind of in these last few years. But, you know, when you just look at from a personnel perspective, from a talent perspective, I think Michigan's got a pretty decided advantage here.
It's funny you mention how it's quiet finally for this defense when they're out there. One of my favorite things to watch the last couple of years at these road games was just that defense. Just and you could especially see it on the road games. Just the way it was so easy for them communicating. They're kind of moving around, disguising things pre-snap. Safety rolls up and then he backs off. Things like that. We'll see how they're able to kind of operate in that environment. But they were just so clinical the last couple of years, especially last season, of course, with the way they did that. So this will be, their first chance against an offense that's playing at home. Offenses typically produce a little bit better in the friendly confines. But Chris, you mentioned this, and I wanted to bring it up too. So Will Rogers gets the ball out quick. Of course, he's a former air raid quarterback, and that numbers bear that out in terms of the 2.5 seconds until he throws. It's the fourth quickest in the Big Ten among 21 quarterbacks. His average depth of target, 8.1 yards down the field, which is kind of on the lower half in the Big Ten, 13th of 20 that have at least 50 dropbacks. And they're going to probably throw some screens at Michigan like Minnesota did. And I remember this. So Jim Harbaugh always said, I'm not a good screen coach. But Jedd Fisch, when he was here, he said, well, Jed is. And do you guys remember the, double pump, then completion against BYU to Khalid Hill? And that may have been the good shit Jed gift.
It was.
So they're going to have some screens. They saw the Minnesota game, right? Minnesota, and really Texas did it as well, where, okay, you have this aggressive defense. On third down, you're going to walk these guys up to the line of scrimmage and show that you're going to blitz. Maybe they'll back off, but hey, we're going to have something quick hitting over to the side where they got more ground to cover now. And I think Jedd Fisch is going to see that with the quick hitting passes that Washington's going to have. Michigan's going to have to open field tackle. They've done a better job of that recently, but right, they didn't have, Texas certainly had more athletes than they saw the last couple of weeks when they cleaned some of those things up. But I do give them credit. I mean, Ernest Hausman has tackled a lot better. Jair Hill last week tackled pretty well. So that's going to be a key. I mean, you hope we're not, using that gift this week for Jed, because he's a great coach. He's a good offensive coach. I believe he calls their plays too.
Yeah, and Brandon Hillman, maybe we'll see a little bit more of him. He's playing better football back there. So, but this is going to be a test, and he's going to know where the weaknesses are. He's going to test those linebackers in space, right? We said this about USC too, and they did it in the second half. There were some breakdowns there that made that a closer game than it should have been. So those are the things that you need to avoid. And that's at this point in the year, guys, they're the things that should never happen. So hopefully that's the case. I trust Wink Martindale to come out with a very good game plan like he did against USC. So we'll see what happens. But I'm with Anthony. I trust this defense. As long as they don't give up those big plays over their head, I think it's going to be really, really tough for Washington to march the field like they did in those other games.
And something else to keep an eye on too is Michigan got a little bit with tempo recently. And, when Washington catches, Rayshon Benny in the game instead of Mason Graham, when they catches TJ Guy or Cam Brandt in at the edge instead of some of those other guys, I think they're going to try and make sure those guys stay on the field, because if Michigan's best four linemen are always out there, it could be a long day for Washington. So it's going to be a chess match. I think that obviously Jed's going to have his team ready to play, and he'll be up for the task as well. So just something to keep an eye on there. Other guys are going to have to step up and make plays too.
Just to make him go 3 and out, and then no one gets tired, and you don't have to sub anyone in, right?
That's easy.
Easy.
That's the formula.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot easier said than done here on a Wednesday morning in Ann Arbor. It'll be a little bit harder on Saturday night in Seattle, but certainly, they got to figure some things out there on how they're going to sub and all that with the tempo. But maybe it was a good thing to see it in a win, before you have to go on the road and play a better team in Washington than seeing it right and being your downfall in a loss. So we'll see how Michigan and that coaching staff adjust. Last thing, just did want to mention, we mentioned a couple times, D-line should eat here against a pretty average Washington offensive line. Left tackle's a JUCO transfer. Left guard's a fifth-year senior who couldn't see the field until this year. Of course, he was behind some good linemen, but the center's an FCS transfer. Right guard's an Ohio State transfer who spent 5 years in Columbus, never played It started one game, but never really got into the starting lineup. Right tackle's a San Diego State transfer who was there for several years, only had 6 starts at his previous stop. So this is kind of there's some older guys there, but there's not that high-level talent. Where there is high-level talent is when it comes to number 55 and Kenneth Grant and all the guys on the Michigan D-line. So it should be a pretty big advantage there for Michigan on the defense, especially at the line. Let's get to our predictions. We'll do our offensive player of the game, defensive player of the game, our X factor, our final scores as well. But before we do, we have to talk about Game Time, the exclusive ticketing partner of the Wolverine podcast. It's the easiest way to get tickets to the biggest games, concerts, or shows. The app is super easy to use. You can see the photo of what the view is going to look like if you're going to a stadium for the first time. That is a great feature. They have event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. I've been sending people to Game Time really all season for games at the Big House. If you're going out to Seattle, get over to Game Time. Use the promo code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. That is ON in the numeral 3. My buddy yesterday, who lives in Austin, Texas, went to the Tigers game in Houston. And before he texted me, or what's the best app to get a ticket? I said, this is perfect. And I'm going to mention it on the podcast. It's Game Time, and use our promo code ON3 for $20 off his first purchase. He did. He got $20 off. He got a foul ball or a batting practice ball, and he saw the Tigers win. So pretty good experience with Game Time there. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code ON3. That is ON numeral 3 for $20 off. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. Let's get to our predictions here. We'll start with the offensive player of the game. I'm just going to keep going with Kalel Mullings. There's just no reason to go anybody else. Of course, it could be someone else. Maybe we don't give enough credit and love to the guys on the lines here at some points, but either way, it's Kalel Mullings for me.
I think I've had Kalel the last 2 weeks, and I'm going with him again. I think I'm going to keep riding him, right? Keep giving him the ball, and he keeps producing. This is the guy here for me. I think he's going to have a big game. I think they're going to stack the line. I don't think it's going to matter. Number 20 is going to come to play.
I'm going to do something that I've never done in my, 3 years working here now? I'm going to opt out of giving an offensive player of the game, because every time I pick someone, dating back to Andrew Anthony, they don't do anything. And I'm kind of tired of that. So I'm going to take a 1 week hiatus on that.
That way to take one for the team, Anthony.
Who did you have last week? I don't even remember.
I think I had Alex Orji.
Oh, boy. So, hey, he had some plays.
I'll say this. It's not an official pick, but
oh, no.
Don't do
it. The Don tends to show up against the Washington Huskies, so just something to keep an eye on.
Yep. 1 of 1. Defensive player of the game. I'm just staying with my same formula. Mason Graham. I think he's going to dominate in this game. That's not a hot take. Everyone in the country now knows that he's going to do that pretty much on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and I think he's the best defensive tackle I've ever seen at Michigan. Period. End of story. And that's the truth. That is not hyperbole. This is the absolute truth. And I think he's going to have another one. I think they're going to give him some added attention. That's going to open some things up for Kenneth Grant too. But Mason Graham is the guy.
I thought Derek Moore played really well last week. Has been consistent. The sack number, he finally got one last week. Derek Moore shows back up. Josiah Stewart seems like he'll be back, but I think Derek Moore is in line for a bit of a heater here.
Josiah Stewart is my X factor. I think him coming back off the injury, I think he did impact, or his lack of presence out there last week impacted, maybe Michigan being able to get to the quarterback late, kind of allowed Minnesota to rack up some yards there, put some drives together. I think Josiah Stewart's big against a offensive line that really won't have an answer for all those guys together, and he's just become so good as a pass rusher.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, we're doing X factors now. I'm sorry. Yes. I'm stupid. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. He would have been mine 100%. I think he's going to have a great day. I think he's going to get to the quarterback and make things tough. So I'm going to go with him as well.
X factor, I'm going to go with a guy we haven't really seen much of since the Texas game. Samaj Morgan, seemingly back this week. I think that he's going to have a big play in this game.
Could be on special teams, right? Sharon Moore was talking on his radio show on Monday night, hey, we like the block punt. We got to clean up some of the punt coverage stuff. We like Dominic Zavada. Tommy Dolman's given us more as a punter. He said next step for special teams, break a long return. That would go a long way. That would go a long way here on the road for Michigan. Samaj Morgan could be that guy in the punt return game. I like that pick, AB. Anthony, start us off with your final score. I'm afraid to go first here.
Okay. I mean, everything I talked about applies here before about first game on the road, unlocking, what you're going to be. And I get a similar vibe to this game that I did the Wisconsin game in 2021, only because it's a tough place to play, an opponent, they'll be ready to go, tough environment. You see the program on the front of the jersey and all that, but I really do think that Michigan has a chance to kind of impose its will and get itself I'll call it a signature win at this point in the season. Now, do I expect it to be 34-13? No. I have Michigan winning 23-18. I think it's going to might maybe come down to a couple key kicks, a couple key situations, but yeah, and Jed's going to scheme up some successful stuff on the offensive side of the ball, but I just don't. I think I really trust the run game, the defense, the special teams, and those are maybe the three most important things when you go play a road game in this conference. So Michigan 23-18.
I got Michigan 20-17 as of now. I haven't given this a ton of thought, but it's going to be a low-scoring game. And I think they find a way. I think the defense is going to keep them in it, and they're going to do just enough offensively to win this football game on the road. It'll be a huge win for them.
I was hoping I wasn't going to be alone here, but I am alone in picking Washington to win a close game. I think 17-16, something like that. I just don't trust the Michigan offense if this is close. I trust giving the ball to Kalel Mullings, but if things don't go the right way where you're not up or, or something like that, I just don't trust them enough. I think Michigan could roll Washington and just kind of run all over them and shut them down defensively. I think 17, I'm picking Washington to score 17. I think that even may actually be high because I trust the Michigan defense, but it's just kind of a gut feeling going out there. I just feel like we're going to be coming back with Michigan with its second loss coming into the bye. Would love to be wrong, but we shall see. It's why they play the games. It's going to be a fun trip, and it would be even more fun if we're coming back if Michigan pulls out the win. Some interesting Big Ten games this weekend outside of Michigan. Not a ton of really big-time matchups, but we'll move into no man knows the future. We'll pick 4 games around just the Big Ten this week. Not as many interesting games nationally, but we have to start out west on Friday night. Hell, maybe we'll even make it over to this game after Petoskey's. Probably not. I don't know how far Eugene actually is. But Michigan State at Oregon. Oregon, 24-point favorite over under 52.5, 9 p.m. on Fox. I love this for a Friday night. We'll be watching, I'm sure, somewhere. I got Oregon covering here. I think it's a really tough spot for Michigan State coming off of a moral victory against Ohio State, keeping it within 31. But to go all the way out there on a short week is tough.
It is. And, I think this is a well-coached football team, Michigan State. I think they're going to turn the ball over like crazy again. I think Oregon in that environment. I will say this, Michigan State went to Boston College and easily could have won that game in a tough environment. So yeah. I think Michigan State stays within 24, but I like Oregon to win.
I think Oregon, I think it's going to be ugly. I wouldn't be surprised if this spread was covered by halftime. You see them kind of empty out the bench sometime in the third quarter. This month of October for Michigan State is brutal. And Ohio State, Oregon back-to-back, you got to go out there in a short week. That's just I'm not going to sit here and play the world's smallest violin for them, but that's a tough draw from the Big Ten. I think it gets ugly out there.
The schedules look tougher when you're the bad team and you have to play good teams. The schedule looks tougher, right? Like it's just the way it is, right? You have at least one less, bad team you can play if you're the bad team. But Iowa at Ohio State 20.5-point favorite over under 44.5. This is 3:30 on CBS. It just feels like a lot of points for Iowa. They're going to muck it up. Stay inside 20.5.
I think Ohio State covers. I think Iowa's going to have a hard time scoring, frankly, in this game with that offense. So
hot take.
I'll take 24-0. No, I think they cover though.
I'm going to go with Ohio State here. I just, yeah, it's going to be ugly there too.
Cade can beat Ohio State, but
not with this team.
Rutgers at Nebraska. The next one, Nebraska 6.5-point favorite, over under 40.5, 4 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. These are two teams that have really covered all but one game, I think, each. They've won a lot of people a lot of money. Someone is going to not win money if you bet on one of these teams here. I'm going to go with Rutgers. I'm just feeling the underdog in this one at Nebraska. We'll see what Nebraska really is against Greg Schiano's team.
What did producer Megan tell you about this game before you went on air?
I did not consult her on this one.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to go with Nebraska anyway to cover. I think Nebraska, you know what? Rutgers didn't impress me really against Washington. So I think Nebraska's physical enough to take care of Monangai. I think they're going to win by a couple scores here.
I'll take Rutgers to cover. I think Nebraska will win, though.
The last two teams Michigan played, USC and Minnesota, are facing off on Saturday night in Minneapolis. USC, 8-point road favorite. Over-under is 50.5. This game, 7:30 on Big Ten Network. I do think I like the over-under 50.5. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring here, actually. So I guess my pick is the over, if that's not a cop-out.
It's kind of a cop-out.
It definitely is.
Give me Minnesota. Give me Minnesota.
All right, I'm going to take USC to cover, and I don't think row the boat, guys. I think USC is going to put up a lot of points on this team.
Yeah, I'll go with USC reluctantly. That's two kind of cross-country flights there in 3 weeks. But I thought what I saw in the second half against Wisconsin and what we saw in the second half at Michigan, I think that USC is tougher than it was last year. And I think that will help them as they get into the meat and potatoes of conference play.
There you have it. That is our show for this week. We will see if any of these predictions come true. But thank you so much for watching and listening. Again, like the video if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Head to thewolverine.com. Use the promo code GOBLUE to unlock premium access to every single article. Podcast there with Ballas and Skeen, EJ Holland's recruiting show. 50% off, $4.99 a month using the promo code GOBLUE. Leave us a comment. Again, like, subscribe, and we will see everyone next time. We'll see some of you in Seattle at Petoskey's 3 p.m. on Friday.